allows you to have instead of triggers or supports instead of triggers. That is, instead of executing this query, execute that query. So things like that. So you can see that step-by-step triggers do start becoming a bit more powerful. And so triggers are another way of defining triggers would be row level triggers or statement level triggers. So imagine that your particular query affects more than one row of your table, right? Set the balance, add $50 to all balances in the Brentwood branch, right? Something like that. So it is applicable to more than one row, pardon me, in your table. So those cases, we can actually define our triggers in two ways. One would be a row level trigger that is executed for every single row that is to be modified by the statement. Or we can also have a statement level trigger that is executed once for the entire state. So these are the two different versions apart from your before and after trigger classifications, right? Okay, so we will talk about a row level trigger in this class. I don't remember if we have a Oracle version or a MySQL version. Let me check. I think I have both. Okay, so our row level triggers can give you a lot of flexibility. So essentially, our row level trigger also allows you to view the previous data before update and the new update, newly created updated row. So you have two different things. What was it before it was updated using an update or an insert or what have you? So what was it before it was updated and what was it after it was updated, right? So you can then compare and contrast those two rows and do stuff with those values as well. So update triggers can use both old and new row data and make use of those. Insert triggers obviously will only have the single new row data because there is no old row data for an insert trigger. Delete triggers similarly will only get the old row data, you won't get a new row data because of this. Okay, so those were your row level triggers. Um, so essentially, if you can imagine, triggers can also access and modify other tables, right? So um, let's say that for the account table that we have here, we have some insert operation trigger, right? Or yes, let's say that we have some insert operation trigger. That insert operation trigger can internally also access and modify other tables as well, right? Insert into banking, insert into, not banking, insert into borrower, insert into loan and things like that. So you can imagine that we can also impose things like constraints using triggers as well. So you can imagine that we can actually impose foreign key constraints using an insert trigger. So if I'm trying to insert something, I can use that function, internal function, to actually check the other table if that key actually exists, and then return a true or false, and then allow that insert operation to happen or not, right? So we can, if we wanted to, we can sort of do those sort of things as well. um, Again, as with applications, I mean, it is not recommended because again, your database already has some your database already has abilities to check for foreign key constraints. That is just, constraints that we had earlier. And internally, most likely your database is still using something like a trigger to actually enforce those constraints anyway. So the end statement or the end motto for you guys should be that if a database has something inbuilt that would allow you to perform a particular feature, you should always prefer that feature over hand coding a hack around that particular system, right? So essentially, but again, we can do it if we wanted. Essentially, we can actually impose constraints, null constraints, not null constraints, and all of those things using a trigger. Okay. So a SQL trigger started getting specified from SQL 1999, but again, as we have seen a lot of times before, different vendors started giving out the features for triggers a long time back. and the standard actually took some time to get encoded. So different databases will have different features and will have different abilities for that matter, and that is something that we have to basically live with. But essentially that is that, right? Okay, so let's take an example. I believe that the next example would be from Oracle, right? Yes. So let's take an example. So let's implement something that is a bank overdraft. And this is a really nice example for a trigger mechanism. So let's say that we want to handle overdrafts on bank accounts. So I have an account balance in my bank. If that account balance goes negative, and we have all done that, right? We have withdrawn more amount than that is in our account itself, and basically the bank would actually uh, either deny the transaction altogether, or more generally it would actually put your amount as a loan amount, and on top of that it would add some overdraft fee, maybe $35 or $45 or some amount into your account as well, right? So essentially, whenever a user withdraws an amount from the bank, if that balance goes to negative, we want to create a new loan with the same ID as the account number. We want to set the loan balance to the negative account balance. So whatever the account balance is, we want to create a loan for it. And we will also need to update our borrower table from the banking database as well, to add the user account ID as a borrower. And so this would also mean that this has to be a row level trigger, right? We are updating a particular row. Okay. So if your database supports trigger conditions, you can actually make sure that your database executes right after your balance becomes negative, and you can trigger that particular function. So before we look into the code, does the question make sense as to what we are trying to do? Like whenever the balance goes negative, we want to create a new entry for the loan. We want to set the loan balance to the balance that was borrowed plus some overdraft fee. And we need to update the borrower table as well. And we want to trigger this mechanism automatically using our triggering, using the condition that if balance goes less than zero. So does this make sense? You can speak up, or you can just type out any questions that you might have. Any questions about this? Okay. So let's look at the code. So this would be, as it says, SQL 99 syntax similar to Oracle code. Oracle is a nice database, DB2 is a nice addition to that, but essentially we will look into MySQL code in a second, but essentially for Oracle and MySQL, there aren't that many differences. I will mention the differences that we have, but essentially there aren't that many differences. So create trigger, right? Obviously, like create function, create table, create trigger, trg underscore overdraft, that is your trigger name. After update on account, that is, it is an after trigger, basically for the event update on the table account, right? So then referencing, so now we need to know about the new rows and old rows, right? So whenever we have a row level trigger, we have the concept of what happened, what was the status of this row before, and what is the status of the row now. So if we want to reference the new row in Oracle, it just says referencing new row as n row. In MySQL, we will see soon that MySQL just has predefined names for new rows and old rows. So it's just called new and old. So it becomes a bit easier, but again, this is cute as well. So that's that. So for each row, when nrow dot balance is less than 0, begin atomic. Insert into values. So we insert the loan values for the account number. So into our loan table, we insert the account number, the branch name, and our balance is currently already negative. So we add that to the loan amount as a minus n row dot balance, where n row is the new row that we got, right? The n row is the row that would have happened if we had updated it normal. So into loan goes your account number, your branch name, and your updated loan balance. We also update the borrower table, that is using this select customer name, account number. From depositor D, we get the enroll dot account number and equate it to D dot account number to get that particular account number. And we insert that into the borrower table. And finally, we update the account and set the balance to 0. Right, where account number is this thing. Okay. Any questions about this code? So the balance will be negative. Very good question. So if the balance is negative, let's say that I have $4 in my, let's say I have $5 in my bank, right? And I withdraw, let's say $30 from my bank. What is the balance now? My balance would be minus $25. So I want that to be placed into the loan amount as a positive loan of $25. So that is why we have a negative n row dot balance. I mean, I don't want a negative loan amount, right? I want a positive loan amount. That is essentially the terminology, right? Loan amounts are positive, but we owe that. Does that make sense? Right. Okay. Any questions about this code? Any other questions? There is a bug in this code. Can someone tell me what? It's a bit weird, but there is a bug in this code. It might be something related to what we have seen so far, but can someone tell me what is the bug in this code? Yeah, no. I mean, I don't mean a syntax error, but yeah, delimiter wise, you can add delimiters. That is fine. I mean a logical error in this code. I mean, in the sense that it is not a syntactic error, but it's a logical error. But yeah, we do need to add a delimiter, obviously. Good catch. Let's just assume that it's fine for now. Let's just move on. Okay. So compared to Oracle, MySQL has more limited trigger capabilities, right? So it only works on inserts and updates, and old and new rows have some fixed names, that is old and new, right? For example, if you remember that here we actually said that, you know what, I want to name my new row as n row. That is fine, but I mean, why would we need to do that if it is already a new and old name like that? And let's also say that we want to apply an overdraft fee to our account. So essentially, once the loan is taken out, we actually put up overdraft fee on the loan as well. So if I take out $30 and I currently have $5, I get a loan of $25 plus, let's say, another $35 for an overdraft. So it becomes $60 total.